I appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon with each of you. Now, usually when I give this presentation, I'm in the room full of football coaches or basketball coaches or administrators who think I am a genius. Obviously, by sitting here today and listening to each of you, I don't hold a candle. So I can't fool any of you when it comes to some of the slides here. But what we're going to talk about today is what Jim noted, which is a project that started a little bit before 15 months ago as far as the concept of the SEC network itself, but then literally 15 months ago on how do we get 14 institutions who are all different and who all have their own bureaucracies to move in a direction that is consistent with the creation of one thing and the creation of a network in a digital age. And oh, by the way, we are a television first in a lot of ways company. We still believe very strongly in the best screen possible, and that best screen is the biggest flat screen you can put in your man cave. And we believe in that. But along the way, we've also realized, as you all have been talking about all day long, it boils down to best screen available. Because when we did some research about 10 years ago, because we were following all these college kids who said, you know, they are multitasking all the time, and they want all that stats. They want to see all of that stuff. And so we set them in a room with a 60-inch TV, and they said, get all that crap off the screen. We want to see the game. And so what we found is they all multitask. And like many of us do, we sit down, we watch the game. We got our big screen right up here, and oh, by the way, I got my iPad in my lap. So if I want to look up something, if I want to check out those stats, I'm doing it on my own terms, as opposed to us, the company, imposing our will on their viewing. And so again, best screen available is our mantra. We live by it. There's no substitute for the big, like I said, behemoth flat screen, but if necessary, it's the smartphone, because it's the only way. You're on that subway, that picture earlier, you're on the subway, it's the only way you can get it, and you got to catch that game. We were watching games last night on that. So you guys know this, the importance of the multi-platforms. I think one of the interesting things here is bullet point number 3. Nearly 60% of U.S. households have a 7th-generation gaming console in their home. For folks who are my age and older, we go to the cable box, we flip it on. Young kids, they go, that is their cable box. So that's why it's so important to be connected and be everywhere. Market dynamics when in the cable business are really very simple. We know that there are 3 main opportunities for you to receive content. It's either through your cable company, and a lot of times we don't have choices depending on where we live, or you have the dish and the direct TVs, or you have a telco in your area that also is providing the content. I think, you know, what we're trying to do is we're still trying to produce valuable product and compelling product for the distributors. At the end of the day, we feel like if we can bring valuable and compelling content that each of you in this room and the fans want to see, then that puts the type of pressure on the distributors that they can't live without us. So we are in so many ways a content-first company where we acquire the content, produce it, and distribute it in the best way possible. So let's talk about the SEC network and what it's going to be. The goal is to surround fans with as many events as we possibly can. The PR says we're going to do 1,000 live events. We're going to do far more than that, to be honest with you. But 1,000 live events. 450 will be on a linear platform, starting there first. And then another 560 at a minimum will be digital. And this is where the digital first comes into play, because that number we will probably double that number or come close to it on the digital platform. So very quickly, it will overtake anything that we're doing on the linear platform. And we will still be feeding all of our linear events through all of our digital platforms as well. We're going to do all the things that you all have become accustomed to a sports company to do, and what we at ESPN deliver, which is broad-based news, the information, the compelling storytelling that we like to do. But this is the piece that Jim introduced me on, which is incorporating the schools into this production model. And how do we integrate them into what we're doing and do it in an efficient manner? Because if we do this correctly, The sky's the limit on the number of events that we can produce. The sky's the limit on the number of events that we can distribute to our fans and how they will be able to receive it. So our digital production is simple. When we talk about maximizing the highest quality production that we possibly can coming out of each one of these institutions and making them available, 2 different platforms. One will be an SEC network branded. That's a minimum standard. That's the 40 Jim talked about. We're raising each one of the institutions up to a minimum standard of production and working with each of them on doing that first of all. And then a second level of branding, which would be a school branded, institutional branded content. That's more meant for the tough to televise events. We're really good at the stick and balls. We've figured out how to make them fit into nice 2- and 3-hour windows and that sort of thing. But man, a track meet is a really hard thing to figure out without slicing and dicing it and putting it into a 2-hour box. But the schools have some solutions for that and some creative solutions. So we figured that it was important to go ahead and allow them to do that and feed that back through our same SEC network pipe. Because after all, it's all coming through our pipe. And when it becomes to offering things to the distributors, we can't have any holes in the bucket. Fiber connectivity on each one of the campuses, key to this endeavor. Cannot do it without fiber connectivity to each one of the venues. Through a control room at each campus, to a central aggregation point, and I'll show you my very technical slide here coming up, and then out to ESPN in both Charlotte, which is going to be our headquarters for the network, as well as Bristol. We did some math on the back of a napkin, and we figured out from a launch standpoint that probably we're fine conservatively with being able to bring in 28 concurrent streams at any one time. We can pretty much manage what the schools are going to be producing and sending our way. So that's our starting point for us. And 3 streams out of each one of the schools at any one time. That math I know doesn't make sense, but 3 streams being, for example, we're in the spring on a Sunday afternoon, we got a baseball game and a softball game, and they're both being streamed. And oh, by the way, we want to talk to Coach Pinkel about spring football that's going on. We can take all of that out. And obviously we're providing live game action, but then we're also providing news and information along the way. Again, my very technical slide. This is the way that I asked the guys to put something in front of me that I understood, and this is what it was. At the end of the day, what you see is the best possible HD signal from camera to home so that we have the highest quality video we possibly can. One of the byproducts of a fiber network like this is you pull your truck up to the venue, you plug straight in, now you don't need an uplink truck, and now you don't have to bounce it out of the sky. Saves money for our venture, and then it also, it's just one more link in the chain that you take out that could otherwise go wrong. So a good thing for us there. The other thing is while this is all interconnected, the cool thing is that now each one of the schools can get a give back. So while they're producing all of this and sending it our way, we can also send things the other way to them for their use within their big board shows at each one of their schools, what they're doing at halftime, what they're putting on their own website from a highlight standpoint, and all the things that they're otherwise wanting to try to do individually as well. So they're going to be producing a lot of things that we want. We're going to produce a lot of things that they want. And that synergy will prove to be incredibly key in this endeavor. When we talk about our products, it's interesting following Mr. Newsy over there based on what he said, because in so many ways it follows suit. But so we believe, one of the things that I really was impressed by the Southeastern Conference, it was their foresight. And when we sat down and we talked about, okay, well, we're going to have a website that's associated with our network. And they said, well, then what are we going to have on our website? Because each one, they currently have their own website that does what conference sports websites do, which is give us some players of the week information and maybe a few highlights, some stats and information. But yours is going to be cooler than ours, was basically what they said. And we don't like that, so why don't we just make it all one and the same? Now, the NCAA has an .org site and then a .com site. The Big Ten networks, or the Big Ten has a BTN, which is their network site, and then they also maintain kind of this administrative .org site as well. The SEC said no. The SEC said, let's merge these things because you're going to have all the cool bells and whistles anyway, and it's what fans want to see. So how do we work collectively and create some pillars to live by as we develop this web platform? First and foremost, it becomes our front door for all of our digital assets and how we serve our fans. We're going to get into it in two different ways. That's just, just because of the SEC wanted to maintain their SEC Sports URL as well. That's fine. But we're the ones who are producing over 1,000 events. So we absolutely have to be the best source for highlights and video. We did some research. Our guys at .com did some research, and they said, why do people even go to conference websites in the first place? Everybody has their own site. I'm a Tigers fan. I'm going to MU Tigers to check out everything Tigers. I'm a junkie of the Tigers. They go because they want to compare their Tigers to everybody else. So that boils down to the scores, the stats, and the standings. So we absolutely have to be the best at that. So we're working with each one of the schools right now to make sure that as they're doing everything that they're doing, as a game ends, as they're updating stats as games go on, that we are getting that back and so that we are relevant. Because you can't miss here. Because as each one of you know, if you go to it once and they look for it, great. You may come back a second time, and if they can't find it, they're gone. They won't come back. They'll find it on ESPN.com or CBS Sportsline or whatever. So we have to be really good here. Conference championships, that's what a conference owns. Everything else is a home game for somebody else. So conference championships, we have to own that space. There's that word again today, Jim, curated. We're going to try to keep people who are SEC fans who think that what we have is relevant for them. So we'll curate some content from across the web, keep them there. And then, of course, last but not least, we'll do what a conference website does, which is service the media. So responsive web, and so that it'll identify each one, whatever screen you're watching it on, and provide the same basic user experience. That is our goal here. What we have found through our research, and we've done some product testing over the course of the last 2 months, is that you want to make it as simple as possible, especially when it comes to viewing this and finding the stats that they want. So we're making it a responsive web platform that just simply morphs and reshapes, but basically the same principles that it would have on your laptop. Key to everything we're doing is highlights, your video players. We will tell the story with video. Text is important. But we are relying heavily on telling the story through video. We are not, at this point, we're not going to have a ton of written word out there. We have over 1,000 live events. That's going to tell a heck of a story. That's what people come to sports sites to see is the highlights. Give them to me. We'll do like I said, what the conference sites typically do, conference news and information. And oh, by the way, the ability to go ahead and search all those standings, those scores that we talked about earlier, which is why people go to conference websites. Anyway, authenticated to your desktop, authenticated also to your mobile device. So we will prompt you, if you are not an authenticated user, to go and put in all of your appropriate credentials. Hopefully you live in an area that actually that has this and you have the ability to see it. Otherwise, please call your cable operator. And one of the cool things that we're also working on, and I think that this will be ready, maybe not immediately at launch, but the ability to go ahead and make the SEC network part of the WatchESPN application as well as one of your channel lineups, just as another way to get to it, and our ability to go ahead and access that through the relationships that we currently have. So one of the things I also wanted to do here, and I don't know if Amanda's still back there to push play or not. There she is. But I wanted to I'll set this up just real quickly. So this is why all of that is so important when it comes to, because this was a game that was supposed to take place on Wednesday January whatever, and a snowstorm hit Alabama. It's the one that locked down Atlanta that you guys probably saw. So we had a production crew in place, or part of a production crew in place. Half of them couldn't get there. So we sent them home, be safe, don't worry about it, stay off the roads. We had a producer that happened to be in Birmingham who said, I'll go down, help the school out. This is a school production. We added ESPN graphics. Oopsie. We added ESPN graphics. We married the radio call. And this is the quality that you got. And by the way, the room that this came out, you would not believe. It was the bowels of Jordan-Hare Stadium at Auburn, Alabama. You have more firepower in all of your laptops and iPads and everything else than what they had to work with. But this is what can come out of there. And this is without any like I said, any of the upgrades that these schools are all now doing. So when you see what this is, which is pretty doggone good, and then know that they're all upgrading it, it's going to be even better.
KT drives on Key, uses the body, didn't get fouled. Yes, he did get fouled. They did whistle it, and he put it in. Tony Green with the call over here. And KT Harrell with a big bucket. He has 22 with 3:35 to go. Timeout on the floor, our final media timeout. Only 3:35 to go. Auburn looking for their first conference win of the season. Right now in good shape as they lead Alabama 67-52. And Auburn basketball continues in a moment.
That's probably 5 students. One of our producers that went down to help, and a couple of their media folks that are on staff there at Auburn. Some of the schools are more savvy than others. Some of the schools have infrastructure, but I have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and tell this story real quickly. One of the things that we found is that nobody at a school within an athletic department ever contemplated building something like this. What they did is they had a company called Daktronics show up and give them a big board and offer them an opportunity to make revenue off of this big board, and they gave them a piece of equipment that enabled them to play replays up on that. Then somebody came up with the idea of how do we marry this to a radio call or some sort of audio, and they did that. And so they MacGyvered those two things together. And the amount of duct tape that we found when we started surveying most of these institutions was amazing. So now when we go in and we talk about this is what we're going to do, and they MacGyvered it pretty well, and they haven't even made any of their technological upgrades. Lastly, before I take questions, please go to getsecnetwork.com. Sign up. It'll give you some information. It'll prompt you. It'll ask you about your favorite team if you have one. Thank you. Questions?
Questions for Chris, who has a plane to catch at some point in the not too distant future. Yep, go ahead.
So I know you're 15 months in, but do you guys have any plans for second and third screen integration with the content on my big flat screen? No?
Not right now.
Okay.
I think it's safe to say right now we're trying to get the blocking and tackling, to use another sports metaphor.
Right.
It's a huge undertaking right now that we're trying to do. So we're not there yet, but obviously, the technology that our company lives within, and I know that obviously our friends in Bristol are working hard on all of those types of things. So what we've been able to do here is reskin things, take the best that ESPN in Bristol has to offer that will apply and build something here.
Well, when you do, I know I'll hear chuckles, but the WWE does an outstanding job.
Yeah.
They first to second screen, first to third screen, second to third screen,
Yeah.
and back around, and so it's pretty impressive.
No, you're right. You're exactly right.
Other
When
questions?
you're in Columbia, I think I like to see Tiger of graphics instead of Alabama.
I hear you on that one. I stole those pictures and they were pretty good, so I kept them. Every other one though there was Mizzou Tigers in there, just so you know.
I saw a couple. I know there's a lot of controversy here because the athletic department has been making an effort to get this on cable.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got resistance from 2 of our cable carriers here. I believe it's 2, which when we get into doing this, we're looking at a lot of money and a lot of costs. And I'm wondering what that cost is to put that on cable that the consumer would have to pay, or the cost for signing up for the network.
So when I say go to getfccnetwork.com, there's no cost associated with that. That is simply an informational piece that where we're assimilating from people like yourselves, fans. It's information for us. It's data for us as we start talking to the cable operators like Mediacom who are here in Columbia, and we can then point to someone such as yourself and say, look, your fans want this. When you start talking about costs associated, that's the first thing that everybody thinks is this is going to cost me, the consumer, more money. And, you know, we don't set any pricing as it relates to what the consumer pays for your packages. I had on my slide that's all up to the cable operators themselves, the distributors, how they package their product is up to them. And they bundle it, so you're not just getting your video, but you're also getting your high-speed internet, and you're also getting your phone in a lot of cases. So what we do is we go to the market and we sit down as a Walt Disney company and ESPN with our briefcase full of assets, and we'll sit down with the Mediacoms of the world. We just recently, a couple of weeks ago, announced a deal with Dish. And so we'll go to the market with all of those in a portfolio and negotiate those terms.
Chris will be around for a couple more minutes before he has to rush off and catch a flight to Bristol. So, Chris Turner, ESPN, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.